Hello, and a very warm welcome to our new IP webinar. Today will be all about the IP management canvas. My name is Ricardo Kali. I am the managing director of Evo IP. It's a small company in Germany which provides IP engineering services. And today I've brought you something for you, a professional tool that I'd like to share with you, that I'd like you to use. And therefore, please feel free to do so. So if you have any questions, please feel free to provide them in the chat. Also, would be interesting for me to know where you're from, and I wish you a very entertaining show. First of all, I want to say this webinar is not for law firms or external consultants. Just because I had in mind, as I was designing this, for IP managers in small and medium-sized enterprises or in corporates. For them, it is dedicated to. Therefore, if you're a law firm or an external consultant, it may not apply to your reality. So please have this in mind. You may need to think a bit in a different way. And if you want to use it, please feel free to do so. Just name me. This is the only thing that I like to have. What is my plan for you today? Today we will speak about the IP management canvas. First of all, why we need to communicate IP departments at all, and why is this so important? Then the second is the business model canvas, which is the foundation or the primary source of this approach. And then the IP management canvas, and more importantly, the canvas game as a fun exercise to facilitate understanding of our own IP department. So let's continue. Why we need to communicate IP departments should be clear, or I mean, we do a lot of IP awareness or so. Still, for me, it's very important that we need to explain what is our job, what does our department, and what's the purpose of the department, of our job, and hopefully you have found also too what is your purpose. So therefore, professionals, in my opinion, what they can do is we have this very, very large deep context of IP in general in our department, in the business and business strategy, and so on and so on. And you can put it into simple terms that you can explain basically what we are doing, how it works, in very simple terms that people can understand it, can follow you, and can make decisions in your favor. And that's very, very important. The people understand actually, oh, okay, IP departments, that's the guys I should talk to for if I need this, or if I need advice, or if I want to see clever people. And therefore, this is the very important things. And therefore, in what I've seen so far is, due to the need to know basis, IP departments are often like functional silos. For most outsiders, it's a bit like a black box. They don't have any understanding of the subject at all or the process behind that. Hopefully you have communicated it, communicate the process or so, but usually it's like this. It's for them like a black box. They don't understand it. It's a very complex, legalized topic, and for them it is barely understandable. And sometimes also for your stakeholders. And if you are in the influence area of the stakeholders, for example, your management team, it's very important that they understand what you do so that they can make decisions in your favor. And therefore, it's important to do so. But how? And for that how, I have perhaps today's solution for you. The business model canvas. The background story behind that is, I was at lunch with my best friend, and he was showing me how he was using business model canvas to actually sell his services to corporates. And I was like, wow, this is very interesting, because I was never thinking of that you use business model canvas for startups or so, or small businesses. Everyone is kind of using that, but in such a context for corporates, that was something new to me. We have thinking, that's interesting. Basically, I don't know if you have ever heard about business model canvas. Most universities teach this now as for entrepreneurial reasons and so on. But basically, the idea is, it was designed by Alexander Osterwalder. He also founded a company called Strategizer, which has excellent resources on this topic, which I can recommend totally, is that you have a business model on one sheet of paper. Because the issue is this: a business model can be infinite complex. And how to explain that? How to discuss that? And therefore, a business model canvas is basically not a sheet of paper. It's not an entrepreneur tool or something or a strategic tool. It is for me first and foremost. It is an communication tool, which helps you to communicate what is your business model, which guides you in the thinking process, and with that, you can either review your current business model or develop a new business model. And it helps you to think in this direction. So it's a very powerful tool. But now you may say, hey, Ricardo, that's nice, but we are an IP department. No, there is no business. There's only perhaps business as usual, but there's no directly, there's no business. We are not selling products on the internet. We provide services. And to be fair, it is not that comparable. And for that, I came up with something now, which is I took the original business model canvas and make a derivative, which I call the IP management canvas. And the idea is that you can answer or demonstrate now how does your IP department work. And that's the idea behind that. Curious? Let's have a look. First of all, for what you can use it. Now, for what you can use that. Now, you can use that on one hand to onboard new members or align with team members of your IP department that you all have the shared understanding of the systematics behind your IP department. Secondly, you can explain the purpose of your IP department, the value provisions that you do to others, especially to your stakeholders. And the third one, if you need to do, if you plan to implement any management system, for example, the DIN 77006, you have to understand that you need to have an understanding of what you're doing. And therefore, I know that you know what you do. That's not the point. The thing is how you can discuss that and show this into simple terms. Usually for such kind of integrated management systems, you have like an outside consultant or so that works with you. And you can use that tool to giving the introduction to your IP management department. And what are the aspects that you do mainly, and perhaps what are the other aspects that you don't do so often or so because they're not fitting into the context or the size of your company. Therefore, it's a very powerful tool, in my opinion. So that's it. I know what you think. Hey, Ricardo, it's a sheet of paper. But basically, it is the same approach as the business model canvas. Your IP department on one page. And the good thing is, if you are practice a bit, you can even do this with a pen while talking to a person. And that is a very powerful presentation, which shows clearly to everyone that you know what you're doing. And last weekend, I learned a brilliant quote from Andreas Buhr, where he said, if you know what you're doing, you can do what you want. And therefore, I was like, yeah, that's cool. And that suits there as well. So here you see the IP management canvas. And what you have to know is with the IP management canvas, there applies as well what I call the blank paper problem. People are very creative if you give them a problem to solve, or if you give them a task or a confinement or so, they come up with every kind of solution. If you ever want to implement a policy or so in your company, you will agree with it now that people can be very creative to walk around. if it's not a very how can I say? Therefore, it's like this is one reason why most policies start to grow, and therefore we have this constraint that says, okay, it's on one page, and therefore it needs to focus you on what is especially and most important to your IP department. And now overcoming the blank paper problem as well is I will show you now my best practice how to do it, so that you can apply this too and have it easier to fill it. Basically, what I do is I start always on the right, on the customer box. That at first, the customers, that's a nice word for internal, external customers or stakeholders. Basically, Who are the people, the natural persons, not departments, natural persons that you deliver value to? And then the next question is, what kind of value do I deliver? The value provision. And then I continue with what are the channels to contact them? What is the kind of relationship I have with them? And then if I have done this side, I go to the left side where it says, okay, what are my key activities to do it? What are the key resources and what are the partners and suppliers that I need? And if I have set up everything above, I go down and now we talk about money. Now, what are the cost drivers? Now, what are the spending of our department? Mostly it's personnel, then for sure followed by external services and by software. And on the left, we have the budget and the cost assignments, and therefore how you get money for your department. And with that, you can understand. With that, you get a feeling what you have to do, with what you can do it, and how you do it. Now, I understand this was now a bit tricky to perhaps to listen to, and therefore, don't worry, I have written it here for you. So also it's written in the handout, the procedure, so that you can have it there. And now I made an example how this could look like. Now, as I said, I put there real people as customers, the C-level officers. Now, if you even know the name of the stakeholders, even better. Now, this makes it much more viable. The department heads, the inventors, the head of R&D. Most important is like, if you come like, hey, customers is R&D. Therefore, it can be the R&D engineer. Is it the R&D assistant? Is it the R&D head? Therefore, be there very precise. That helps you to understand fully the customer relationship that you have. Then the value provisions. And here you find a list. For example, that you provide freedom to operate information for products and services. I wrote it short. That you provide competitive advantages through intellectual property rights. That you provide additional earnings through licensing. That you motivate the inventors. That you provide tech scouting. That you provide startup scouting for mergers and acquisitions, and so far and so on. Then you can start with the customer relationship. For example, for your department heads, you have like a meeting, perhaps once a quarter or so, or a meeting. So you have a direct relationship. They know you, they know you know them. For the C-suite, maybe it's different. Maybe you have a VP or so. You're just invited on occasions, and you just inform them via the corporate reporting. I don't know. And the way how you have that relationships, that is defined by the channels. For example, you have an IP newsletter. With that, you have contact to all the inventors, and the heads of R&D. That you have the inventor notification. You have board meetings, if you're allowed to go so. Now that's on the right side. On the left side, you find the key activities. Here I saved a bit of time. I was just using the DIN as a reference, but also like scoring committees that I need to steer my IP assets and how to get this information, how I should proceed with them. The invention disclosure handling, which is a key activity of any IP management department. The IP ideation session, and so far and so on. Then you have key resources, like the software that you're using, the personnel, and also if you have specific locations that you may need to use, you have it there. And who are the partners and suppliers to do so? That means everyone which is outside of your department. Can be software providers, your outside councils, other departments. That works with you. And then we come to budget and costs. Now, as I know, most departments, they have like an annual budget, which means they get a piece of paper which says like, that's the money that you have for the year, live with it. And most IP managers start on planning, forecasting costs, and so on. That's the amount, that's the budget they have and they can work with. Maybe you can also reassign costs that you have, for example, that you say, hey, if you want to have a freedom to operate, you pay the freedom to operate from your project budget. That's not IP management budget. And with that, you avoid that the IP management budget is getting higher and higher and higher, and you have to justify always why it's that high. And if the IP tasks are related to can be reassigned to development project, then it makes more sense and it's easier. Also, there's a commission of licensing. So if you make money through licensing or so, that's all on the income side. And on the right side, you have your cost drivers. As I mentioned earlier, you have your personnel, licensing, the cost for administrations, for service providers, and so far and so good. And with that, you can get a glance about, okay, what actually is your RP department doing? For whom, how, and what does it cost? And therefore, for me, I think it's a nice exercise you can do for yourself or with a team together. And that's what I call the canvas exercise game I came up with. So you have two different approaches. The first approach is that you say, okay, we do it like a brainstorm session. We sit all in the room, we have the boxes, and we start shouting our ideas for this box. And the first phase is collecting, and then we do clustering and curating, and then at the end you have a very nicely filled box. And you move then from box to box in the way I have shown you, or in your own order, as you like. The second approach, this is more interesting, is that you form either small groups or people by themselves, give them the IP management canvas, and let them fill that for themselves. And what is very interesting is I wouldn't give too much explanation, just a few, because people say like, "Hey, Ricardo, that's not so defined." And this, yeah, that's the game, a bit of creativity, and this. What if people have this misunderstanding? Actually, it can be very fruitful to to very fruitful for you to think about, and maybe they come with a total new understanding, which or different aspect you yourself were never aware of. So that's good. Therefore, this creativity this space for creativity is very important. So you have different teams, and here's a pro tip: use if you work with teams, they do it by themselves or a sole person. Let them work with post-its, because then it's easier to cluster the information and also to merge all information together. Yeah, and if you have done that, you get an answer to the following questions. First of all, do all team members have the same understanding? You get this feeling from, okay, um, at least if you do run this game a second or third time, at some point there will be a similar understanding. And was the canvas game itself understood is also information, because sometimes people are not used to this canvas and they come up with in the first round with not so well answers because they misunderstood it. And the third thing is your IP management system clear to each team member, and also including you, which means the metrics, how it works, that people understand. For example, one thing that I learned with my customers, which are mainly corporates, is like this: they have an annual budget, and therefore now is the time to talk with them about their budget and what they forecast, because later that year, even no matter how they like you, if they don't have budget for you, they can't give it to you. So that's another aspect with it, and therefore I want to say thank you for your time. There was also my friend Georg, which is greeting me. Hello. And thank you for tuning in or watching the recording. So if you want to have that template for your own purposes, just drop me an PN on LinkedIn, and gladly I will provide you with. So have a great day, and I wish you all the best. Stay innovating.